Hold that story.
Okay.
Okay, are we live this time? Yeah, Shotz just made a great story that I guess will be later.
I just talked for like 6 to 9 minutes.
I know. I feel so
and that's
bad.
gone. I can't.
You'll never get that back. Oh, wow.
No, it was beautiful though. It was great.
So, hey, what's up, everybody? It's Mover. Welcome to Mover Ruins Mondays. We're already. Can you at least see us now? Since we're not talking to ourselves, I just want to. Yes, it started. I see something in the chat. So we're gonna do this one more time. The story's already warmed up. I'm not gonna laugh now. But welcome to Mondays with Mover. I'm with Shotz Burgon. We're already having a great time. We're not 6 minutes late unless you hit the live button incorrectly, which I did not. So my bad on that. We wanted to start. In fact, we did. So we're going to do this again because, as many of you know, yesterday, tragically, a snowbird had a mishap, and Captain Jen Casey, who was the public affairs officer, was killed in that mishap. So we're going to take a minute just to pause and reflect and honor Captain Jen Casey. So we're here with Shotz, and I apologize for us being exactly 6 to 9 minutes late. But like I said, we just talked about this, and I'm sorry to make you have to go through this story again. But Shotz is the author of. He's like many of us. He's an author. He is a fighter pilot who has flown the F-22, currently flying the T-38 with me in the world's greatest fighter squadron, the last bastion of good deals in the Air Force. He's an airline pilot, and one of the things I wanted to talk about, I was going to save this for later, but it's an appropriate time. You wrote a book called Piano Burning and Other Fighter Pilot Traditions. And one of the fighter pilot traditions that I've talked about on this channel is when we lose someone, like when I lost my friend Jinx in an F-16B course mishap, we burn pianos. And I was hoping maybe you could explain why we do that, what the genesis of this is, and kind of why that's important that we hold on to our fighter pilot culture.
Yeah, you bet, Mover. So just like any fighter pilot tradition, right? Tracing the roots of the tradition is very, very difficult. The origins of these things are, I mean, it's next to impossible to really track down exactly where all these traditions and the lore comes from. The reason it's so difficult is that a lot of it wasn't written down at the time it was created, right? It was passed kind of word of mouth for decades. And so as I did the research for my book, I wanted to put out just the absolute truth for fighter pilot traditions. And unfortunately, I think what ended up happening, just like anything that has to do with fighter pilots, is you get the 10% truth, right?
Yep. The
rest, who knows? I talked to a lot of Air Force historians, a lot of old fighter pilots, Vietnam era, even a Korean War era guy, to get, kind of the background here. And what I've done is essentially kind of figured out the consensus for where these things come from. And that's what I published in the book. So the consensus on the piano burning goes something like this. Back in World War I, Royal Air Force over in England, right? Their first military pilots were the high class, high society types, very refined gentlemen. And just as, in the early days of military aviation, it was a deadly time. We lost a lot of those guys, and it wasn't long before they had to start pulling from the lower ranks to refill the fighter pilot ranks there and keep guys flying. And so as they started to kind of pull these blue collar guys up, they realized they were pretty rough around the edges. And in the Queen's Air Force, that just wasn't going to do. So one of the things that they instituted was piano lessons. They wanted these guys to be gentlemen. They'd have to take courses on etiquette, and then piano lessons was kind of part of that. And just like any good fighter pilot would, they hated being forced to take these piano lessons and being forced to be a gentleman, right? So one day, one of the O clubs, and then I can't remember which one off the top of my head, Nugget.
So to speak. That's in there too, probably. Yeah,
it sure is. But one of these O clubs ends up burning down, right? And with it burns the piano. Well, piano lessons were indefinitely canceled at that O club, and word quickly spread that, hey, you want to get rid of piano lessons, you get rid of the piano. And so guys on Friday nights would hit up the O club. They'd have their standard drinking night, and at the end of the night they'd end up pulling the pianos out and burning those things down, kind of as a little bit of a sign of rebellion, or they're taking their own taking their culture into their own hands, and that's been a theme ever since. So from those early days, the traditions passed over to the United States Air Force from the RAF guys, and throughout the years, piano burning has come to mean different things. And because it is kind of difficult to just find a piano and burn it, right? They're somewhat expensive. They've started burning more on special occasions, and so one of these occasions would aptly be the death of a fighter pilot. I've burned pianos at squadron reunions. We burned them at UPT graduations. So they are special occasions, and among those, absolutely a fallen warrior.
Yeah, well, very tragic, but I'm glad we got to at least talk about it, because the whole culture, it's a dying breed. I mean, it really is. We're losing a lot of our culture, so I'm glad that you were able to capture that. But we'll talk more about the book later. As a fighter pilot, though, it wasn't an easy path, right? I mean, this is not something that you just walked into one day and said, hey, I wanted to be a fighter pilot. How long have you known you wanted to fly fast jets?
Yeah, so I mean, ever since I was a kid, I wanted to fly fast jets. I think my story mimics a lot of other fighter pilot stories. You grow up going to air shows, and my grandpa was actually a B-25 pilot in World War II.
Wow.
Yeah, and
awesome.
he actually, he was advanced for a while too.
In America. Yeah,
that's right. So that was pretty cool when I got to go to pilot training in Enid.
Okay.
But all growing up, I wanted to do it. I was up at Hill Air Force Base. I can't remember the year, early '80s, when one of the Thunderbirds crashed, and I was there and I saw that. And even after that, I was like, man, that guy, he went the right way. Like it's a pretty bad thing. Absolutely. Yeah. So that kind of stoked the fire. And then somewhere in high school, I kind of lost focus on my goal. I actually ended up getting a degree in finance when I went to college, and
did you go
I was
going
to be an investment banker. Yeah. I just went to a state school.
Nice.
wanted to be an investment banker. I actually ended up with a venture capital company where I did financial analysis for a few years, and this was right about like September 11th timeframe.
Oh yeah.
And there's just a whole bunch of different forces at play in my life at that time. So obviously the surge of patriotism at 9/11, and also I just didn't like the idea of sitting at a desk for the rest of my life. And there was the day that defined it for me. I remember it as if it was yesterday. I'm getting on a flight going back to Boston, and I'm getting on behind these, I'm guessing they were accountants, like 5 guys, right? They're all wearing their polos and their khakis and had their little computer bags, and they're talking about how excited they were to get back to the office and, crunch the numbers. And I looked down at what I was wearing, at my polo and my khakis, and I'm like, ooh.
One of us.
Yep. So that did it for me, man. So at that point, I started looking into joining the Air Force, and kind of the rest is history. But I will say I had a lot of help. I was just kind of getting into following some of these blogs these guys that were going through UPT. And I reached out to two of them. One of them in particular, Jason Barton, great guy. Throw a nickel on the grass for him, man, because he's also one that's gone to the other side for us. But he did a lot for me, kind of giving me info and steering me in the right direction to get recruited to OTS. And then kind of from there, just the train just kept rolling, man.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's never a linear path. Everybody thinks that if you're not, from high school, people are like, I have to get great grades in high school or else, I can't be a fighter pilot. And, then you get a story like yours. So you went to OTS. How did pilot training go? Like Vance Air Force Base, great place to fly, but.
Yeah, no, it was awesome, man. I loved it. Had a great time. I took a huge cut in pay, as a second lieutenant coming from the Spencer Capital Company. But man, I tell you what, I never once looked back. I loved every second of it. It was tough. At the time, I was single, so I had all kinds of time to study and work and. Ended up tracking fighters after phase 2 and getting into phase 3 of pilot training. All I wanted to do was fly Vipers, man. Like, we had them here at Hill Air Force Base, and I'm like, and as a kid, like I went on some scout trip. We went to Hill Air Force Base, and I got to sit in the cockpit of one of those things that obviously made the seat cold. But I sat in this thing for.
You wear it. You wear the jet. It's you are one. Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to fly, man. And we get to graduation night or assignment night, and they flash the planes up there. I turn around and there's a T-38. I'm like, oh, just deflated. But I always say luck and timing is such a huge part of any fighter pilot's career. Yep. And there were no F-16s in my drop. If I would have had anything else, I wouldn't have ended up in the Raptor more than likely, just based on what was in the drop. So, as it turned out, man, it actually turned out to be a pretty good deal. And I actually really enjoyed the assignment. A lot of great people I flew with, and, it's great to get that instructor experience.
Yeah, well, and speaking of instructor experience, it's been a rough time. Last week, I talked about the mishap at Vance that killed one of our reserve brothers. And, it's a scary aircraft in general, just flying it. But as an instructor, that has to be, you have to be on top of your game, right? What did you get out of teaching, as a FAPE? Like, how did that help your airmanship?
Well, more than anything, I think it kind of helped me identify complacency in myself. Because complacency is such a huge part of accidents in any airframe. And, when I came back from pilot instructor training, I was the opposite of complacent, right? I'm on the edge of my seat. I'd take the jet at the first sign of trouble or even before, And then you get, a couple hundred hours in as an instructor and you start getting comfortable. And, you kind of start letting your guard down a little bit, giving the student a little bit more leash. And then somebody does something that gets your heart racing and you're right back, you're like, whoa, okay, And so you're kind of on this constant sine wave of being complacent versus being like super uber proactive. And you kind of, after a while, you find a good balance. And the more experience you get, the more you're able to anticipate and think about, hey, what's going to happen given this input or this situation. Then you do get better, and I think you lower your risk from a human factors perspective.
And so from there, how does the assignment system work? So it's just like a VML cycle at that point. Every 3 years there's a drop. It's a little different for a FAPE, right?
Yeah, and for me in particular, because in 2008, the Air Force came down and said, "Hey, we're kind of testing out this thing. We're going to start sending students straight from pilot training to F-22, and as part of this experiment, I guess we're going to take like one FAPE from AETC, like one T-38 FAPE and one T-6 FAPE." And he had to submit a package. So I was interested. I submitted my package, so to speak, and and man, just luck and timing right there,
yep.
bro. That's about all I can say, to be honest with you. I ended up getting picked for it, and kind of that process at that time, which is very different today. I had to go to IFF and continue to compete in IFF.
Which is Intro to Fighter Fundamentals, in case anybody's wondering. It's an intermediary where they teach us how to be a fighter pilot, but using the T-38. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
good.
No, it's a good point. I start throwing these acronyms around and stuff, and who knows. But yeah, so we go there. It's a small class, and they cut our class in half and sent half of us to the F-22 and the other half to the F-15C. And then and then they were going to so between IFF and the F-22 basic course, they sent us to Phoenix, to Luke, to fly the F-16. They basically had 3 goals for us. Number 1, don't pass out under night Gs. Yep. Number 2, don't hit the tanker during air refueling. And number 3, don't fly into the ground on night vision goggles. That was pretty much it.
Because it's all solo the first time you do it, right? I mean,
exactly.
You're walking out of pilot training, and they're like, "Here's the keys. Good luck. We'll see you later."
Yeah, and the A-10 guys have been doing this forever, and so they probably scoff at this, but yeah, that was the the early days of the F-22. They didn't want to take any chances, and so we did. We went through. It was a transition course in the F-16 right up until the check ride. So they didn't give us a check ride just because we didn't do the single engine flame out stuff, because they're like, well, you're never going to fly this plane again after this, so we don't care. And,
so were all the rides dual?
Yeah, all the rides are dual.
You didn't get the solo in the F-16?
No.
Okay.
No, it does suck. Yeah, but again, because we didn't practice SFOs, but
right.
But no, it was awesome, man. It was went through with the Emerald Knights out there, and actually one of the instructors there ended up coming to our reserve unit. I don't know if you remember Nugget Richards.
Yes.
Great
Nugget's
dude.
A great dude. Yeah.
So he was one of my instructors in the F-16, and then I saw him going through the transition course about the same time I was going through the B course. So it was pretty cool to see that.
Wow. Well, so from there you went. Where was the F-22 B course at the time? Where were they?
It was at Tyndall.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was brand new though. They were still kind of figuring things out as you went.
Yeah, I was in the second B course. So there was one B course that had gone ahead of us. So I was in the second B course. Great group of dudes. A lot of those guys are still in, weapons officers, and just great dudes. But
first flight in the F-22, what was that like?
Wow. It was eye-watering, man. It was it's so hard to explain. Just
magic.
I mean, there's that simulator. Yeah, well, the simulator doesn't really prepare you for the acceleration, and in your first takeoff, it is not an afterburner, right?
Oh wow.
You're just in just a mill power, and it's even still, man. You get a good kick in the pants as you're rolling down the runway, and just the climb out pitch attitude,
it's got some power.
Like, man, I'm just
it's not cruising. A T-38.
It's not, and you go up, and I think I remember on the first flight, it's just like an aircraft handling characteristics flight where the instructor actually takes off first, kind of comes around the pattern and tells you when to release brakes, and then joins up on you, and just flies chase. And so you're just essentially flying single ship with the instructor doing a lot of the talking, and just to kind of free up brain bites for you to keep the aircraft from either going supersonic or whatever on departure. So
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, but I just remember the coolest thing on that first flight was out in the airspace doing a pedal turn where you're at 60 AOA, and there's vapor coming up over the canopy, and you're just doing this just spinning in space, man. It was so cool.
That's awesome.
It was a trip.
So I mean, BFM in that jet, probably like the Viper, could probably hurt you if you let it. I mean, with the G onset rate and stuff. But I mean, what's it like being King Kong?
I mean, it's awesome. It's easy to get cocky, because here I was as a young captain at the time, and I'm fighting guys that have been in their MDS, their fighters, 4th gen fighters for way longer than I've been flying BFM, and I was still kicking their butts, and it wasn't me. I mean, I can tell you that much. That
right.
jet is very forgiving, and you can power out of a lot of mistakes.
Did you fly a lot of dissimilar against, like, I mean, we have a high contingent of European audience, so they're probably like a Eurofighter or a FAL. I mean, how did it go against other jets that you?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, when we fight against U.S. fighters, we fight in a combat configuration, right? And one of the things I noticed, fighting a lot of the foreign adversaries, they would strip their jets down, take everything off, and when they do that, a lot of those aircraft, the performance is very good and can match the Raptor in a combat configuration. And so we had some really good fights when it came down to that. And again, when you get to that point of similarly matched performance in aircraft, then it comes down to the monkey in the cockpit, and it's interesting to see different I don't want to say tactics, but different approaches maybe to dogfighting, so it was great. I think that's probably where I honed some of my skills the most, because they're not as predictable. You get used to fighting.
Right. Everybody has a standard game plan, and then you go somewhere else, and it's like,
you're like, what?
Yeah, I fought Harriers one time, and they did the nozzle thing, and the dude does this, and I'm like, nobody's ever done that before. What is? Climb, just climb, get out of the way. So did you deploy in the F-22? Did you get one of the deployments when you were? I know it was early, so we didn't really deploy with them as much. But did you get to?
So yeah, I did several deployments. I probably won't go into too much detail about those. Just I'm still not super comfortable talking about some of that stuff, even though I'm sure it's probably fine. But yeah, so I got to do some stuff.
Okay. Yeah. All right. We'll leave it at that. I don't want to. We try to stay away from stuff that could get you in trouble. But it sounds like an awesome time. So how did you go from active duty to reserve and eventually airline pilot? Like, how did that transition out of being the tip of the spear to trying to do 3 jobs at once?
Yeah. So that was actually kind of a heart-wrenching time in my life, because I'll be honest, like I wanted to keep flying gray jets, but I had some family priorities, some just kind of some other directions that I wanted to take in life, and the ops tempo of active duty, just kind of the career path, none of that really played into what I wanted to do as far as taking care of my family, and so I did have to make a tough decision. Do I stay in, go the distance, or do I get out of active duty and pursue something part-time? I knew I wanted to keep flying fast jets, but also knew I didn't really at that point I'd done several deployments, and I could see the toll it was taking on my family at that point, so I didn't really want to do that. The T-38 seemed like the perfect answer for that, because I was still able to do something tactical, because just to be clear, the role in which we fly the T-38 is it's
fighter
an adversary role.
Yeah,
so,
we're still fighter pilots. We're still flying like fighter pilots.
Sustain, ease, tighten, baby. But yeah, so I had to make that decision, and I'll be honest, man, I don't think I was ready to leave gray jets, but over time, it kind of became evident that I did make the right decision, even though it was tough for me and for my family. It's not the right decision for everybody, I think there are a lot of people who it's very important that they do stay on active duty, go the distance and lead the Air Force into the next the next generation. But just for me, that wasn't in the cards. So that's kind of where I ended up. And I've actually really enjoyed the transition. Airline life, obviously not quite as exciting, but I actually do get to fly with a lot of old fighter pilots, and just
That's
the
cool.
stories and stuff, when we're on the road, you get to the hotel at night and go out for dinner or whatever and swapping stories. It's great, man. It's great to have these traditions in common and a lot of these, stories that we have in common.
Wow. So you went straight to the T-38. You didn't do any reserve F-22 before the 301st T-38.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So that unit is very near and dear to my heart because when I was in the F-22 at Holloman, we all got dual qualified in these same jets, the black T-38s, right? And we got pretty good at flying red air for each other. And it was just a blast. In fact, we called flying the T-38, we all called it riding the bull, because it's a much more difficult aircraft to fly, stick and rudder than the F-22.
Mm. So now that you're an airline pilot, I mean, people have asked me this, so it's a fair play. How hard is it going from you're on the 737? Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
How hard is it to go from a 737 on Monday to a T-38 on Tuesday, or vice versa? What are the?
It's harder going back to the 737.
Yeah. I mean, I found I would go in because the T-38 we were 10 feet, 3 feet across the overrun. You're very low versus 50, 40, 30. The tendency to flare high, but.
So for me, and it's funny because I think it's different for everybody, but for me, I go back to the T-38 and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to plant this sucker. I'm just going to put it down as hard as I can. I'm going to drive it into the runway. And then I usually end up actually doing an okay landing my first one or two back. I'm like, then I get cocky. And just like everybody that flies the T-38, you have a couple good landings and you think you're awesome. And then your next, however 10 landings are just pranged on, bounced on, putting the struts through the wings. But then, you go back to the 737 and you kind of have that lower, for me, I have that lower sight picture and you hear the 50, 40, 30 and you see the guy next to you starting to do this, and you're like, I should probably flare.
That's awesome. Well, cool, man. Well, let's go to the questions. If you guys want to ask a question, put it in the chat. We'll start the Q&A section of this. If you want to make sure, you can use the super chat function to make sure that it'll do it. But one question is, what did you guys feel more easy, more difficult in learning the 737? So transitioning from fighters to airline life, did you find that the stereotype of fighter pilots having trouble was true, or did you think it was just kind of an easy, logical next step?
Yeah. So honestly, I think flying the aircraft was pretty easy. It's all the operational stuff, how the airlines operate, the timelines, all the communication with dispatch. It's kind of that, decision-making stuff. And a lot of that's really on the captain. So getting into it, I didn't find the transition to be terrible. And to be honest with you, I think that's because I had some really good support. I had a sim partner who he came from JetBlue. He's actually a Navy P3 guy.
Oh, cool.
He'd been at JetBlue for a couple years, and so he kind of taught me how to speak airline. And dude, I'll be honest, if it wasn't for him, it would have been difficult. So I had somebody that was kind of there to help ease that transition. But yeah, the stick and rudder stuff is pretty easy. All the response to the checklist, the crew coordination, that's just
like being a wingman. You're a wingman in the same aircraft.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So on that note, that's a good question. Someone asked, what do you think is the best way as an IP who's seen a lot of classes come through to succeed? What would you tell somebody who's about to go through the pipeline or about to go through UPT? How do you do well in pilot training?
Well, this is all my thoughts. All right. So I'm sure you ask another dude, he's going to give you a different answer, but For me, I'm going to say 30% is going to be skill and effort, right? 30% is attitude, and 40%, no joke, luck and timing. So, you know, you control the things that you can control, really, which are, you know, the effort that you put into it, you know, the development of your skills and your attitude being huge. You know, you have a bad attitude, you're not going to learn as quickly, and you're not going to, you know, assimilate the stuff that you're being taught.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. My always thing was just help your bro and don't be a douche.
Yeah, that's actually a way better way of putting it. So,
yeah. So this question is, what is your biggest oh shit moment in the Raptor?
Oh man,
is that can we talk about that?
Oh yeah, and it's it happens where every oh shit moment happens, dude, in the tanker track. So I was at an exercise out in the Pacific, right? We were, I think you know the one I'm talking about. You're hundreds of miles away from this little island, which has the like one airstrip that you know, all 200 jets are going to go back and land at.
I wrote a book about that airstrip. It's in one of my books. Yeah.
Oh, very nice. I'll have to look that up. But yeah, so we're out there, and the way the tanker track was set up is they had 3 different cells, right? So 3 different tankers. They're all stacked on top of each other. When you check out of the lane, you get an assignment. You're like, hey, you're going to this tanker on this boom frequency. So you're like, okay, I know that this tanker, you look at your little coordination card, this tanker's at this altitude. Yep, that frequency matches up. That's his call sign. All right, there I go. So I go in, I'm running my intercept on the tanker, and I go high aspect with a 2-ship of F-15Cs. I'm like, that's weird. Am I at the right altitude? Am I going to the right tanker? And
that's always the worst. Like, that one moment of I don't know what's going on right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm talking to the tanker. I'm like, hey, do you guys have 2 F-15Cs joining on you? They're like, nope. And I'm like, hey, do you see me? They're like, yeah, we see you. I'm doing my wing rock. I'm like, just confirm I'm at the right tanker. They're like, yeah. And as I'm completing my rejoin, these 2 F-15s come rolling up, and they actually cruise right onto the wing, right? And so I'm like, all right, dude, I'm going to stay over on the right wing until they get on frequency and figure out they're at the wrong tanker.
It's not me, it's you.
It was definitely not me that time. And trust me, I checked all the boxes like, it's not me, it's not me. So, okay, it's definitely not me. Anyway, so flight lead gets on the boom operator gets him up on the right frequency, and you know, he's like, sorry, man, sorry. And you know, meanwhile, and keep in mind, dude, I'm like fresh out of MQT, you know, getting mission qualified, and I'm by myself. Flight lead's still in the lane. So I'm over here on this right side. I'm like, I'm just staying here until everybody figures out like what's going on. Well, about halfway through the flight lead's air refueling, we get this radio call. It's like, hey, there's an avalanche in the lane, which means, you know, all the bad guys are pushing. They're like, everybody out of the bullpen, everybody back from the tanker track. Like, we need everybody. And so this guy that's on the boom, like, I just see him like drop down off the boom, and I'm like, oh no. Like, I have this, you know, the hair starts standing up on the back of your neck, right? You're like, I have a feeling that he still doesn't know I'm here.
Oh no.
And so, yeah, so I start like moving away from the tanker, and sure enough, man, this dude comes up between me and the tanker with just enough room for me to like read the lineup card on his knee, man. Like, I mean, there's this like, it was like slow motion, like Matrix moments, you know, where like I'm kind of like this. I can see full plan for him banked up, and you know, we're just, our eyes meet, you know, this like
wide
just time just stopped, and we're both just like, oh, you know. And anyway, so he blasts, and he's like, sorry, dude. and he's gone, man. And yeah, that one, like, we probably, I mean,
inches.
I mean, wingtip to wingtip was, yeah, it was inches, man. Like, to this day, I'm surprised we didn't scrape paint. So.
Luck and timing, all right?
Luck and
couple
timing,
seconds
man.
either other way.
Track.
So
Tanker track, most dangerous place.
This is a unique question. Are you a NASCAR fan, and do you have a favorite driver? I'm surprised to see that, but I'm gonna.
Oh man, sad to say I'm not a true American. That
Okay,
I don't
all
really
right.
follow NASCAR
But
as closely
Folds
as I
of Honor
probably should.
is the best race of
That's
the year.
right, man.
Folds of Honor,
Yep.
support them. So
Great
this is
charity.
it is. Noonan was on last week. Fine American. This is a question that I give every guest the option to pass because, as you know in your book, call signs are mostly sacred. So, do you wish to give the story of Shotz or pass?
How about this? I'll give the official
There you
story.
go. Fair enough.
The on the books story.
The public use, the public information story.
Yes, because as everyone knows, there's two stories,
Correct.
right? There's the official, party line story, and then there's the real fighter pilot story that only the fighter pilots know. So I'll tell you the official story, right? So my first flight in the F-22 after getting signed off as a mission qualified wingman was like day one of red flag.
Oh, big.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And I had the coolest ops group commander at the time, Bam Bam Stapleton. Again, nickel on the grass, man. He passed away of cancer several years ago, but amazing fighter pilot. But he was our expeditionary wing commander, right? So he comes out, he's like, all right, boys, here's the game plan. He's like, we're going to send 2 4-ships. First 4-ship, 50,000 feet, 1.5 Mach, get above the cons, shoot everything, don't turn around. Second 4-ship, you guys are going to be, 60 miles in trail, same thing. Nobody's turning around. Like, we're going to shoot anything that doesn't live off the first wave, get killed by the second wave. If it's still alive after that, we'll let everybody behind us take care of it. It should only be 1 or 2. All right. So we get up there, man. I'm in that first wave, right? I still remember Rocket 4, man. We're up there cruising along, I'm watching my displays, and it's just, I don't even know how to explain it, man. It just looked like a 3-year-old took a can of paint and just like threw it at my freaking displays. And so, so I'm trying to sort through there, target, my targeting responsibilities, and there's all this comm jamming. There's even comm spoofing, like, Rocket 4, say weapon state. Yeah. What's your fuel? And like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, shut up. So don't respond to that.
You fell for it.
The new guy. There's so much stuff going on, man. So I'm like, I'm just going to start shooting. And so I did, man. I unloaded.
Winchester, I'm out.
Yeah, I did. And then I realized I was on the wrong display, like range wise. I thought I was closer to these guys. And so I'm calling all my shots, and then I'm like, why is it taking so long to time out? And then I see all these contacts turning cold, right? And then I'm like, oh no. So I shot like way, way, way out of range. And, I ended up, no weapons. They're like, all right, dude, you cleared off and go home. So I go home and land, and then, the air-to-air shot eval, right? There's like 100 people or whatever more in that big auditorium. Yeah. You stand up, stop, time, 1844.
Invalid.
$5. So, yeah, man, it was embarrassing. But yeah, so that's how I got Shotz, and it's spelled with a Z because it's gangster. So.
Dude, that is awesome. All right. Well, this is a question. It's not Shotz specific, but he was wanting to know, he saw a 4-ship of F-15s come in. He wants to know the order that they land, and it's just 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there's really no thing. What is your favorite NFL team? Go Eagles from Serps.
Ooh, I know I'm going to take a lot of flack for this, but Broncos.
Oh, the Broncos, huh?
I know, man. Okay. They're kind of my local team here, so that's as close to local as I get.
They were always my AFC team. I'm like, if I have to root for an AFC team, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What else we got? Let's see. I don't want to keep you too long, but this is awesome, dude. Your stories are amazing. I don't know what favorite op Favorite OP?
Is it probably like Inherent Resolve?
I don't know, man. We're gonna pass. We're gonna pass on that because it sounds. Oh, do you have?
If that's what it was, Inherent Resolve. Sorry, what?
Do you have the Raptor cough?
Yeah. So the Raptor cough is not an ongoing. Well, all right. Story time here. So, and if I get going too long, you just cut me off.
Dude, we got as much time as you got. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the Raptor Hack, right? You're breathing this like highly concentrated oxygen, right, up at altitude. And it's not even, you don't even have to go very high before you get this, like, I can't remember, it's like upper 90% oxygen, right? Mm. So you come down and whatever those little things are in your lungs, alveoli, I don't know, probably areola.
We're not doctors, we're fighter pilots. We don't care about that. Yeah.
Those things are saturated with oxygen, right? So after you land, you're doing your post-flight, you're just coughing, trying to clear those things out. And it does, it goes away. But as you know, there was a time where the Raptor got grounded, right, for oxygen issues. And I'll be honest with you, again, this is just Shotz opinions.
Your opinion.
Nothing official.
Everything on this channel is pure opinion. We never take.
It's just this douche talking right now. Yeah, man, I don't think that there was ever a smoking gun. They said that they found the issue, that it was a combat edge vest, it's foul, blah, blah, blah. Threw a bunch of money at it. But, I know a lot of guys did inhale, stuff, contaminations and whatnot. Fortunately, I didn't, but they took everyone's blood. They took like a gallon of blood from everybody at the time so that, we could like look back on it and be like, all right, how's it over time, whatever, any medical issues. And to be honest with you, I don't think anything's ever come of that. So I hope everyone's still okay. I don't seem to have any ongoing symptoms that
you look fine.
Resulted from flying the Raptor.
You really look good. You don't look like you got the Rona or anything.
A couple pounds, above fighting weight, but
yeah. So we've got one. I'm a doctor. Areola, nipples, alveoli. There's just so much doctoring stuff, dude. But so this wasn't a question asked, but it's now my question. So there was someone who asked, what's your favorite warbird? But my question is now, if you could pick a time to go be a fighter pilot at any time in history, what would you pick?
Ooh.
Like, what was the glory? When do you think the glory days of being a fighter pilot, or are we in them now?
Man, I'd say Pacific, man. Like,
yeah,
the Robert Aschenbrenner days, P-38 is probably that's probably what I would choose, man. There's a lot of great fighter pilots that flew that aircraft and had some amazing kills and some amazing stories. So
that's awesome.
I don't know. That's probably where I would go.
Yeah,
the Robert Aschenbrenner story is such a cool story, man. So
now going back to your book, do you tell stories, or is it more of a explanation of kind of why we do things, kind of an inside look into kind of our how we grow up and what we're told as young wingmen for this culture?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, like the fighter pilot culture and legend is such a personal thing to everybody. And it really kind of, plays into your daily life as a fighter pilot, that I thought it'd be important to not only say, hey, here's the legend, but also, hey, here's kind of the tradition, but here's how the tradition has affected me. So I do tell some personal stories, specifically like about, how the piano burning, made a mark on me. And, just to try to give it a little bit more personal flair. But really, the whole genesis of putting this stuff down in words was so that we don't lose it. In the short time that
there's just nothing out there. I mean, it's
no, and it's going away. There's roll calls aren't happening as frequently, and when they do happen, they're not full of the same shenanigans they were 16 years ago when I was second lieutenant. So
right, and that link is in the description if anybody is wondering here. Is there a plane? All right, this question, because I made a video about this. Elon Musk said the fighter pilot era is dead. Do you believe that to be the case?
Man, that's been said so many times by so many different people. So no, I don't believe that's the case. I think the fighter pilot's changing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the fighter pilot will ever be dead. I think it's a critical component of our military. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that disagree with this, but I really do believe that fighter pilot really is a bastion for the warrior ethos, the warrior spirit.
A knight, a sky knight. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we lose that, man, we're going to lose the fight, because you got to have that tenacity. You got to have the willingness to go out and just kick some ass. And if you take that away, and it doesn't matter, even if you're, shoot, man, and like, I'm going to take flack for this one for sure, but if you're sitting at the end of a pickle button and you're not in the jet, I mean, dude, as long as you have that hate in your heart and you can, fire away and make the bad guy go away, that's going to always be an essential part of our Air Force. Hopefully the fighter pilot stays in the jet. I'm a big proponent of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, I don't know. Fighter pilot's changing, not dead.
Yeah.
Screw you, Elon Musk.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I had the same opinion. Yeah. Let's see. What do we got here? If you could fly any jet other than the Raptor, what would it be? Would it be an A-10?
Actually, yeah. So
besides the Viper, because we already established you flew the Viper, so operationally.
Yeah, I would probably say the A-10, and that's because my buddy Pig that flew the A-10 had some amazing stories. Pig and Skid, if you remember those guys, old A-10 warriors and their stories in Afghanistan. T-Bear, yeah. Pile, I mean, all those guys. Yeah. It's unreal, the stuff that they did, and just hearing like on the radio these like 19-year-old kids like cheering them on. I mean, I'm like, man, that would have been cool.
That's ultimate. I mean, to me, there's no better mission than CAS. I mean, having done that in theater, I mean, that's the work. That's the job. I have a brother-in-law who's Army, and he gives me so much grief,
for being up there above 30,000 feet all the time, hanging out. He's like, no, the action's on the ground. Yeah, it kind of is.
So somebody asked, guard F-22 pilots. That is possible, right? We've got
Virginia and Hawaii.
Virginia, yeah. So that's a very, very big thing. And do you fly with the guard units at all? I mean, it's no different, right? I mean, that's the biggest misconception I think people don't understand, is it's really no different.
Yeah. So, I mean, I deployed with them, and yeah, there's different patches, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a little bit different timelines with their deployments, but no, man, I mean, it was great going to war with the guardsmen. It was awesome, man. It's just like going to war with the active duty.
Are there new fighter pilot traditions that you see that are taking the place of old fighter pilots? Will there be a book 2 with the new fighter pilot traditions?
Oh man, I hope so. Yeah, and so here's what I've kind of noticed with this new generation of fighter pilot that's coming online is, man, these boys and girls, I'm gonna call them boys and girls, they're men and women,
right?
Full up, but now that I'm starting to get a little bit older, these young men and women, man, they are built for this fight that we're getting into now. They're built for this time, and this is something I didn't realize as a lieutenant, because I think every new generation comes in kind of prepared for the circumstances, the atmosphere, that prevails. The political atmosphere in particular is a huge one, right? Mm-hmm. And these people they're built for it, man. They're built for the fight. So I have 100% like faith and confidence that we'll get some new traditions, and 100% faith and confidence that this fighter pilot ethos is gonna continue.
Survive. That's all it is survive.
Yeah, survival.
So someone asked your opinion on Fat Amy, but my question is, Are you gonna call? Are we gonna call it Fat Amy or the Panther? Because 60% of the time it works every time.
I mean, we kind of have to call it Fat Amy because, why not? That's such an awesome name for it.
Dude, I'm gonna send you. There's a meme with the obesity chart, and it's like, it starts at Viper, it goes to F-22, which is normal weight, then it's like an Eagle, which is slightly overweight, and then it's morbidly obese, and it's got a picture of Fat Amy on an F-35. It's amazing. But anyway, sorry. Continue with your point.
I'm pretty sure Bullet posted that question. Number one. And so my thoughts on it, without getting too crazy and in the weeds, I think it's for what it's built for. It does a good job.
Yep.
I mean, it's not an air dominance fighter. I think everyone's perfectly clear on that one, right? So yeah, if we're talking air dominance, then yeah, it's Fat Amy. But I mean, it's pretty amazing for
it does some cool
mission
stuff
that it does. Yeah. So which again, I'm even less comfortable talking about that stuff. We did I don't know if you did the simulator with us that day.
But the bottom line is it's got a bad rap. The press was basically all over it for a while, but it is. I think it's going to be I'd fly it. I mean, I'd love to fly it.
Oh yeah, me too.
I mean,
I totally would fly it.
We just won't tell anybody. All right, we got time. I don't want to take you too long. Give me one more good question from the group. This is not a question. Somebody's asking about the Snowbirds crash, but I'm going to answer it. We don't, as fighter pilots, it's a foul to try to speculate on a mishap before we know all the facts and before the investigation. I mean, you just leave that for other channels. I'm not going to do it. So unless you got anything to add, am I off base?
No, man, absolutely. I mean, I'm exactly the same way. The F-22 crash that recently happened, I was getting text messages from a bunch of my friends, and I'm like, I wasn't there. I don't know. I mean, it's safety privileged information.
Yep.
Let's let it play out, and then we'll look at it after the fact. Okay.
Here's your last question. What do you think about the Russian jets?
Ooh, man, this is probably a Russian operative posted this one.
His name was Vlad. So, and also, why won't you say box? Which I have no problem saying. It's just a matter of currency.
Well, let's see here. Which question first? Well, I won't say the synonym for container. Because there were certain penalties attached to that as I was growing up in the Air Force, and so I think I still have some PTSD from
See, I thought the rule was you just had to be current. Like you couldn't say any of these things unless you had currency in such affairs. But it was a TDY thing. But maybe I'm wrong.
Well, yeah.
I'll read the book.
Different communities. That's the thing. Different communities, different traditions. It's kind of an amalgamation. So, I guess we all kind of do us in a way. But no, the Russian aircraft, I mean, they're obviously very capable.
It's just different approaches to doing the same thing. They are much different thought processes. I would love to fly one.
Yeah, honestly, I think the day that we discount any of these, foreign aircraft, that's the day that we're gonna get our asses handed to us. So yeah, we gotta respect them. Just like a freaking snake, man. You pick it up, you don't know if it's gonna bite you and be poisonous, or if it's just you respect it regardless. So
yeah, awesome.
That was a terrible analogy, but
I liked it. I mean, any analogy is a good analogy. At least you didn't talk like I start to do with the hands. But I don't have models, so I don't have the sticks.
Shoot the watch.
If you don't shoot the watch at least twice in a thing. So, parting shots for the kids at home. I mean, do you have any big picture takeaways you'd like to? Because there's a lot of young aspiring folks on here. So, I mean, anything you'd like to say?
Honestly, Mover, I think you say this best, and you say it constantly. Is make them tell you no. I've heard you say that a lot, and but it's the absolute truth. I mean, look at me. I mean, I was a venture capitalist finance guy, and I ended up flying F-22. You know, I mean, and I'm not going to say against all odds because, I mean, obviously there's a gateway out there for people to do that, and as long as you meet the criteria and you're within the window, you know, you can do it. But man, I mean, it was a lot of work and it was a lot of luck and timing. Just, you know, hold the faith, stick with it. And if they tell you no, make them tell you no again and again and again and again.
To the last guy or girl.
That's right.
Whichever one it is.
Absolutely.
So you'll be back flying for the, we're both in the same squadron, and neither of us can go fly the mighty Combat Talon right now, but
travel ban.
Appreciate you being on the channel. They can find your book.
Thanks for having me.
In the description. It is available paperback and Kindle. Is that correct? As well?
Yeah, it's all on Amazon. That's kind of the only.
Internationally,
place.
Amazon UK and all that stuff, probably.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
I'm pretty sure the Russians have like downloaded it more than anybody else, but you know.
Well, hey, if they get some fighter pilot traditions out of it, maybe, you know.
I want to read their books, man. I bet they got some crazy stories.
It's one page and it says vodka. Vodka. There's nothing else. Well, brother, I appreciate you being on the channel. Thank you so much for telling your story and answering the questions. I know you've inspired many watching this and many who will watch it. So I appreciate your time, man.
Awesome.
Thanks for being there, and thank you everybody for watching. And we'll see you on the next one. You guys take care.
Sounds good.
Excuse me. No. Oh! About a lot of them. God. Basically fly with the doors off. All hot speed. Don't be a douche. That's rule number 1. Make them tell you no.